All right, we are going to finish up the 5B notes. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to go here. We're going to start writing equations. So, one of the first things we have to remember is the point-slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we always want to write our form in y equals mx plus b format. That's our end goal. So, when I use this, I have been given the slope is 3, and the point is negative 2, 4. So what that means, this is x1, this is y1. So I just put my values into the formula. So y minus y1, which is 4, equals 3 times x minus negative 2. Whenever I see minus negative 2, double negative, just make it positive. It's going to make all the mistakes go. Well, not silly. Some of the silly mistakes will go away. So I distribute the 3, I get 3x plus 6. Again, I'm trying to solve for y, so I add 4 to each side. I get y equals 3x plus 10, and that's my answer. This next question, I'm being given a slope and a point, so I can use the y minus y1 m times x minus x1 formula again. Now there's a shortcut to this one, but I'll tell you after I do this formula here. So my slope, well, first of all, it's going to be y minus, well, my y1 is 6. My slope is negative 9, then it's x minus 0. So if I write this out again, I'm going to just write up here, y minus 6 equals negative 9x plus 0, because negative 9 times 0 is just 0. To solve for y, I have to add 6 to each side, so I get y equals negative 9x plus 6. Now if you notice, the slope is negative 9 and the y-intercept is 6, and that's what was given. Only if they give us the y-intercept can I just write out the thing immediately. People think this shortcut works for everything, but it does not. It only works when I'm given the y-intercept as my point. If it's not the y-intercept, I cannot use this. All right, the next point. I still need to do y minus y1 equals, m times x minus x1. I'm still using the same formula. I have 2 points here and no slope. So I do have to remember slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So when I do my slope here, it's going to be 4 minus 3 over 6 minus 2, which is equal to 1/4. So now which point do I use? Now, I'm going to use both points. I'm going to do this question twice, and it really doesn't matter which point you're using, but I'm going to demonstrate you get the same answer no matter which one you use. So I have y minus 3 equals 1/4 x minus 2. So I have y minus 3 equals 1/4 x minus 1/2. So then I got to add 3 to each side. So I get y equals 1/4 x. And when I add that up, I get plus 5/2. So now I'm going to do this other one in green, and I should get the same equation here. My y value this time is y minus 4. My slope is still 1/4. Now it's x minus 6. So I have y minus 4 equals 1/4 x minus 3/2. I add 4 to each side. I get y equals 1/4 x plus 5/2. It's the same equation either way. You most certainly don't have to do this twice every time, but it does not matter which point you use. As long as you get the correct slope and you use one of these, you're fine. Now, in the homework, when I'm doing these questions, I avoid, if there was a negative in one of them, I'd avoid that, or if there's fractions, I would avoid it. So, and then you're good to go on that. All right, so now this next one here, they're changing up a little bit. We're still trying to find the equation of a line, except now this time we're still using y minus y1 m times x minus x1. This time again, I've been given a point, but I'm not given a slope. Now, last time I'd used the slope formula. Now here we're going to do it like the questions we did near the end of 5b. I mean, the first video of 5b. I have to solve for the letter y. So if I have x plus 4y equals 5, I have to subtract x over. If 4y equals negative x plus 5, I divide everything by 4. So I get y equals negative 1/4 x plus 5/4. So my slope is negative 1/4. And since I'm trying to find parallel, I'm going to use negative 1/4. Now, if it had said perpendicular, which is the next question, I would have to do the negative reciprocal. So we got to pay attention to this. This says parallel. So my point is 2, negative 4. So it's y minus, well, my y value is negative 4. My slope is negative 1/4 x minus 2. So now once I get here, again, minus a negative, I want to change that to plus positive. So it's y plus 4 equals negative 1/4 x plus 1/2. So now I have to subtract the 4 over here. So I get y equals negative 1/4 x minus 7/2. And so that is the correct equation in slope-intercept form. My slope is negative 1/4. My y-intercept is negative 7/2. This next question here is almost the same as this, except it's perpendicular. But again, I've been given a point but no slope. So what I have to do is, I have x minus 3y equals 9. So I have to solve for y again. So I subtract x. I get negative 3y equals negative x plus 9. I divide everything by negative 3. So I get y equals, now negative over negative is now positive 1/3 x minus 3. Now remember, if my slope is 1/3 and I want perpendicular, I have to do the negative reciprocal. So I have to change this to negative, and then I have to flip it. Now negative 3 over 1 is really just negative 3. So my slope is negative 3, so I'm going to use again y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to do y minus 1 equals negative 3x minus 4. So when I get here, I do y minus 1. I distribute my negative 3, so I get negative 3x plus 12. I got to add the 1 over here, so y equals negative 3x plus 13. And there's my formula in slope-intercept form. Again, my slope is negative 3, my y-intercept is 13. This next question is kind of a mean question, just partially because it's a word problem. But they actually make it very nice. We're going to be able to use our shortcut in this to write the formula out. So, in 1920, the record was 45.6 seconds. In 1930, it was 45.3. So we're going to try to make a linear function of this, how the race, people are getting faster and faster. So when I do this, so I'm going to do this, it's going to be, for my first point, remember, it's the number of years since 1920. So in 1920, no years have passed, so that's really a 0, 45.6. So once I see that x equals 0, this is the y-intercept, so that is very helpful. So in 1930, well, that's 10 years have passed, so that's 10, 45.3. So now if I want to find the slope, I have to do my y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I do 45.3 minus 45.6 over 10 minus 0. I let my calculator do it, and I do get a decimal, and they actually want a decimal slope in this. So it's negative 0.03. Now if I want to write the formula for this, and again I want it in slope-intercept form, my slope is negative 0.03 and 45.6 is my y-intercept. So what I could do is I could just write it in here. So for part A, I'll write it over here. It's really y equals negative 0.03t plus my y-intercept of 45.6. Usually they will have the t written for you in there, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you use the letter x, they will mark it wrong. But they try to overemphasize that. And they try to, if it is on the quiz, they try to give the one that already gives the t. So please don't get too panicked about that. Now, part B. We got to use the function to find the record, to predict the record in 1994. So how many years have passed from 1920 to 1994? Well, 74 years have passed. So that means t equals 74. So all I do is I put this into the equation. Negative 0.03 times 74 plus 45.6. And when I put that into the equation, I get 43.38. So the record in 1994 is predicted to be 43.38. So the next one is going to be in 2001. So if I do how many years have passed from 1920 to 2001, well, that's 81 years. So I'm going to do negative 0.03 times 81 plus 45.6. I do this in the calculator and I get 43.17. So in 2001, the record will be 43.17. Now the last part of this section here, I'll do it in red here. So part C here, it wants what year will be 42.75. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same formula here, except now I know my y value. So it's 42.75 equals negative 0.03t plus 45.6. So I have to solve for the letter t. So I have to subtract 45.6 over. And I do I do the subtraction, and I get negative 2.85 equals negative 0.03t. I'm going to divide each side by negative 0.03, and I get t equals 95. Now, a lot of people will type in 95 as the answer, but remember, this is 95 years after 1920. So I have to do 1920 plus 95, and then I get the year 2015, and that is the final answer. Okay. And then in the last section here for 41 and 42, this question right here is number 41, and number 42 is just another version of this. Okay. And so that's the end of the second part of 5B notes.